I'm Nancy Harkins on the steering committee, and with me is Della Zaria. And online, another steering committee member is Anita Rapone. And it's great to see everybody out here tonight on a frosty evening. We've had quite a week for winter weather. To see everybody here and also online. I also want to introduce Charlie from CCTV. And Barbara. Barbara Turnbull from the city. And
you wanted to say Cito and then you caught yourself.
Some other part of the city diagram, not to say Cito. And Fareed is here, but he just stepped out. So we'll have him say hello later on in the meeting. I just want to remind everybody that if you speak, to please, during the meeting, to please say your name and where you're from. And the microphones are for the benefit of the recording and people online. So in the room, they don't amplify the sound in the room. So just speak up when you're speaking. So with that, we'll start with a call for any announcements before we get into our agenda. Yes.
Hi, Nancy. I'm Alan Matson. I'm the Ward 6 clerk. And town meeting day is right around the corner here in March. So I'm just reminding folks that always looking for people who would like to work the polls. First note has gone out to people who've worked in the past, and we'll start getting signups sort of toward January 1st. We need to get a full list of people who will be working the elections over to City Hall by mid-January some point. And you'll see, I'll make a posting or two on Front Porch Forum. And if you need to reach me, I'm definitely got my email on the city website under the Ward 6 Ward Clerk. So anybody who's interested in elections, come on. 2026, we have 3 elections. So if you miss March, you'll have a chance in August and you'll have a chance in November. So would love to see y'all come out. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. Any other announcements? Fareed, you're back with us. If you want to say hi.
Hi.
Once again, we have, for those of you who are online, we have a fabulous meal from People's Kitchen. So keep that in mind for next time. Did you want to say anything else? Come to the front.
Okay.
Come to a mic.
Thank you. My name is Fareed. I'm a volunteer with the People's Kitchen Project. We are a mutual aid group working based in the South End that deals with food insecurity and community organizing. We serve dinner 3 nights of the week downtown at the City Hall Park. Most of the people we serve are unhoused folks, but we really serve anybody who wants a meal. It's every Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday at the City Hall Park. We are also currently looking to get any blankets, sleeping bags, warm clothes, socks, mittens, hats that we can distribute to our unhoused neighbors. So if you have anything you can spare, please let me know. You can contact me at 802-491-3491 or drop off at 44 Ledgmere Street, a couple of blocks from here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fareed. Okay, so if we have no further announcements, we'll move into our discussion on the Opiate Prevention Center survey. And we have Jess Kirby on the line.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can people see me also? People can't hear me? Yeah. Uh, I can hear you. I can hear you guys and see you.
Okay, great. If you're up, Jess, we had to adjust the volume for you.
Okay.
Great, we're all set.
All right. I can hear my echo. I'm fine with that, but I just want to make sure it doesn't sound crazy to you guys.
It's awful online. The echo's terrible online.
You're echoing too, so I couldn't hear you very good, but oh, I think it's better. Okay, sorry. My name is Jess Kirby. I'm the Director of Client Services at Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform. I am a person with lived experience with opioid use disorder myself. And that's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about providing services to people with substance use disorder, and especially passionate about helping make overdose prevention centers a reality in Burlington. I normally have a sidekick, Teresa Vizina, who works with the city, and she is ill tonight. So she usually opens us up and does those kinds of things. And so I bear with me that I'm usually the sidekick, not the headliner, but she asked me to come tonight and just talk to you guys a little bit about the overdose prevention center that BCJR and the city are partnering on to open in Burlington in the future. And just ask, we're trying to go around to all the NPAs and make sure that people in Burlington know about the community survey, that the OPC survey that the city of Burlington has sent out. And that's like one small step in a community engagement process that will be really robust. And that's one of the pieces to try and make sure that we're getting really good community feedback on what people's ideas are, where people might want to see it. We want to hear and talk through people's concerns and fears about it. And so that's one piece of how we're going to do that. So we're just hoping to encourage people to fill out that survey. We'll also have, like, in the coming months, forums and listening sessions. There's also a webinar you can find on the city website that I was a part of, and some people that are running an OPC in Rhode Island were a part of, and then some researchers on OPCs. So that would be something that would be a lot of good information in there if people want to take a listen to that as well. But I also just, we wanted to make sure people knew about those opportunities and give people an opportunity to ask questions. A lot of people don't know a lot about OPCs, don't understand a lot about OPCs, have questions and concerns, and we just want to have a really transparent process where we're giving people opportunities and coming to people and coming to the community and asking people for that feedback, and wanting to give opportunities to answer questions for people. One main question that we've been getting a lot is about siting. We do not have a site yet. We want to hear from people in, this community feedback process. We want it to be data driven. We want it to be a site we can actually get. And we have also been having a lot of opportunities for people with lived experience, people that are likely to use an OPC to give us their feedback. We completed 50 surveys about 2 weeks ago of people in Burlington who primarily are people who are living on the street currently, and that is the population that we really expect to be using the OPC most frequently. So we had a process for them to give feedback, and we completed 50 surveys really quickly, and got some really important information about what would make them feel safe to use it, what they think would make it a success, where they think it should be, and those sorts of things. So, like I said, we don't have a site yet, but we are very, very close to having a contract. There was a city council vote on Monday, and that vote passed unanimously, and that was about that was in order to allow VCJR in the city to enter into a subrecipient agreement together. So that was an important step that needed to happen and has now been completed. And so we should have a contract in the coming days, which will allow VCJR to start to get funding to provide these services. We're still a ways out from implementing consumption services where people will actually come to a site, which first of all, we don't have yet. Currently we're located on Bank Street. That is not where the OPC will be. It's that it would not work there for several reasons, including size. But so we are now about to enter into the contract that will allow us to get funding and hire staff, get technical assistance from the other OPCs, and take steps to implement what we're calling phase one. And that's sort of like a planning phase and building policies, doing the service assessment that I was talking about, and the neighborhood assessment, and getting community feedback. And will just allow us to be moving the ball forward. So that's mainly what I wanted to share with everybody. Aside from that, I just wanted to say that, we're really very, very committed to making this a success. And when we say that, what we mean by a success is, for it to prevent overdose deaths, and to serve people who are very at risk, and who are also having a really high impact on our community, to serve that population in a way that really works for them and will also really benefit the community. We take very seriously being good neighbors, and making sure that we're a part wrapped in like the community, and that we are not people that kind of think whatever happens outside our doors is not our problem. We want to be a part of community solutions. We very much intend on being good neighbors. And we are currently right now at our site, and we have over 300 clients already serving, this exact population. So, people really need this, and that's people who are using drugs, but also, for other reasons like public drug use and, discarded syringes, and people having behaviors related to their drug use in the community out in the open that are really challenging and have an impact on everyone else. And an OPC will help with all of those things too. So, we will see, especially, in downtown Burlington, we really think that we'll see less people having challenging behaviors related to their drug use that are, big and sometimes, uncomfortable and alarming for people to witness. That will have less of that in public. We'll have less people using drugs in a really public way. So we're really looking forward to helping make this a reality and showing people, that this will benefit the population that we're trying to serve, but also the larger community in really important ways.
Jess, I had a question.
Sure.
This actually came up in our last meeting, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but someone raised the concern that the United States Attorney General had announced that they would be prosecuting people who were clients of the OPC.
Okay. So I have not heard that specifically at all, but we do have, lawyers that are advising us. The city has lawyers that are advising and paying attention to those things. And what we do know is that right now, what we're doing is implementing phase one. And even if we were to get into a new site tomorrow, all of the things that we're implementing right now, or about to be implementing right now, there's no concern about that at all, because the consumption part is the part that people have concern about with that. And so that we're not going to be starting that part for a good bit. We have some time to really see what happens with things like that. There are OPCs that are already having consumption services that have not had any issues like that are still operating today, that they haven't had issues with their clients or their staff, or anything like that. So we're definitely closely monitoring, listening to our attorneys, and we'll be, really careful and mindful before we take that next step. But, we are definitely intending to do that. But we have not heard that specifically.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Jess? Dale?
Hi, Jess. Dale Azaria. I live in Ward 6 and I'm on the NPA steering committee. I have a question. You mentioned that you already have 300 clients, and you might have said this, but there was a lot of information, which I really appreciated. But what services are you providing now to those 300 clients?
Yeah, sorry. I have done a lot of these, and sometimes we've already been there once, so I'm so sorry for not explaining that more. That's kind of embarrassing. But we at BCGR, we operate a specialized reentry and recovery center for people with substance use disorder, and have traditionally specialized in working with people with justice involvement. And we really believe in a one-stop shop sort of model. A lot of that comes from just years of experience serving a population that's really challenging to reach and engage. And being a person with lived experience myself, and we really prioritizing having staff with lived experience, we know that even the smallest barriers prevent people from getting care a lot of times. And so we really believe we have a model that is walk in, where people can just come in every day. We help them in the moment of need with pretty much anything they walk in the door with. So we drive people to treatment. We have a low barrier medical partnership with Johnson Health Center, and we do wound care and treatment of opioid use disorder with buprenorphine and mental health treatment. We have a diversion program in partnership with the state's attorney's office. We do a lot of basically people come in, they're not doing well, and it's something like this. This is something that happens every day. Coming in, I have this wound, I have this bad infection, I don't want to go to the hospital, I had a bad, experience last time. I also, had all my belongings stolen, and I'm freezing, and I don't have a coat, and I want to go to treatment, and I don't have any way to get there, and I don't have a phone to call, and I have no place to stay. This is what walks in the door 10 times a day. So we help people with all that stuff. We'll help people call and do their treatment intake. We'll help drive them there. We'll help get them into the Chittenden Clinic if they need treatment with methadone. We'll help them get antibiotics for their wounds, which we have medical care in-house 4 days a week. And so we really just serve a really challenging to reach population in a way that's very low barrier for them. So does that answer your question well?
That is really helpful. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Tiff?
Hi, Jess. This is Tiff Bloomley. And I'm wondering what you imagine the timeline will be at what point do you all imagine being able to open, given the public process you're going to need to have around citing, et cetera?
Yeah. We honestly, it's so hard to answer that because we don't know how difficult this citing will be. We're working with realtors that are helping us look at sites. And there's a whole city council process related to that. There's a community feedback, but there's also that the site will need to be approved by city council, for the consumption services part. So a lot of it depends on whether we can find a space or not, it won't happen in the next 6 months, because we'll be building in phase 1 during that time, and doing the planning and writing the policies, procedures, getting staff trained, all of those things. So it will be before there's actual consumption services happening. It would definitely be, over 6 months. If we found a site like tomorrow. We definitely hope that it's not very much longer than that. But we're going to be doing a lot of OPC related things before we're actually implementing consumption. Like we want to be in a new site where we have, oriented our clients to the services there and gotten them comfortable with the OPC staff and gotten them comfortable with the space, and they'll be there getting harm reduction services. And so we want to be building that stuff really soon. And if we could get a site, in a month or so, we hope to be doing that stuff, I mean, like, we're not going to be in a site in a month because we don't have a site, but I'm saying we want to start those things as quickly as possible. But a lot of it really depends on that part. So I know it's hard. We don't really have a specific answer for how long. We have urgency. I know that.
Barbara, I can't see who online has their review. Romeo. A question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Hi. So I have just one question. I'm sorry that I missed part of the meeting. What are the locations that the treatment location that you guys are looking for, and what are the things that you guys are considering, notwithstanding downtown? Are there other location away from downtown that you guys may see might be more fit, provided that you guys work with public transit specifically? Because I know there is an overdose clinic on San Remo Drive, which when I used to work at Green Mountain Transit, a lot of the folks that needed treatment used to go there. I don't know if you guys are looking into that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. We are not looking outside of Burlington at all because the legislation and the funding is specific to Burlington. So it will definitely be in Burlington. We don't know exactly where in Burlington, but we definitely don't intend to have it on Church Street. We want to find that balance of making sure that it's close to where overdoses are happening and where a lot of the public drug use is happening and where a lot of people who are unhoused are, because we want to make sure that if we're going to have this service, we want to make sure that people can use it. The bus costs money. There are a lot of barriers. I know people that have trouble getting to the Chittenden Clinic in South Burlington every day. I know clients that miss their dose every day. I see people that miss their dose because of transportation barriers just to that, clinic on San Remo, which, to a lot of us doesn't seem far, but it is far if it's cold and it's winter and you don't have a bus pass, and, which are very hard to come by. Even a Medicaid bus pass, there's a ton of hoops. You have to call, you have to have it verified how many days a week you're going to go there. If you lose it, you're screwed. You have to go to the transit center and pick it up. You can only have it for a very specific certain amount of rides. There's a lot of barriers, even to a Medicaid bus pass. So we really want to find the balance of, not having it in a place where, like that's very close to Church Street and the business, community rate in that area, because we know a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. But we also want to have it close to where the need is. So we're hoping to strike that balance, somehow, but it'll definitely be in Burlington, at least.
Romeo, did you have another question?
Yes, please. I was wondering, have you, and the reason why I brought up Green Mountain Transit specifically is that I know if there's something you guys can work with Green Mountain Transit, it might work at one point. But besides that, have you guys considered partnering with UVM at any point and see what they can provide you? Like, because UVM has got a lot of spots out here in Burlington that may be useful to the program. I don't know to the extent you guys are in discussion with UVM to see what can be done to provide a specific spot where this clinic can happen away from the downtown core, just within the UVM healthcare network locations, just in Burlington. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. We UVM has been an amazing partner to VCGR already. They have with our medical partnership with Johnson Health Center, they've donated wound care supplies. We've received some emerging needs funding from them to serve this population. They've been really great partners in a lot of ways. So we definitely intend to hope to partner with them, in ways to be determined, but they're obviously a very important resource in our community, and we want to make sure that we're in good communication with them about our, about the OPC and about coordinating, with things to do with overdose response and that sort of thing. But as far as citing, I don't have like a statement from them. You would have to ask them specifically for something like that. But I do know that being in a UVM owned location right now isn't an option because they're struggling with a lot of space issues themselves. They said that they're already having a hard time like citing their own programs and needing to move things out and condense things, and that they're really struggling with that as is. We did have a conversation with them, and they said that they don't have any space in the Burlington area that we would be able to use right now. So
thank you, Jess, for
Sure.
yes.
I just wanted to note that
Yeah.
if anybody wants to take the survey, I was just looking to see how easy or hard it is to find. And Jess, I don't know if you have a shortcut, but I found it by going to the city's main landing page on the web, and it's like there's a link right there on the main landing page that says the OPC Community Survey open through December 15th.
Yes.
Jess, do you have any better way for people to find it than that? Because I don't know how long that'll stay on the city's webpage.
I'm hoping it will stay until December 15th. But that is the only way that I know how to access it right now, other than I believe it was sent out, to anybody that gets emails from the city. A link was sent out there. Also, I know Teresa sent a flyer about it to the people. I think everyone on the ward, maybe, or maybe just you, Dale, I'm not sure. But on that one page, there should be like with a place with a QR code, that kind of thing. But that's the only way that I know how to access it right now.
We could get the link and email it to people, post it in Front Porch Forum
Yeah.
within a couple of days before next
Yeah.
week.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Also, feel free to coordinate. Teresa's better with those city related links and stuff, of course, because I don't work at the city. But if you email her, she'll be happy to help you, like, with just ask her and getting you the link and anything that you could need with that. She's very helpful.
Great. Thank you, Jess.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so with that, we will move into our next agenda item, the petition for the apartheid-free community. And
Okay, thanks. Duncan and I are going to share a brief presentation. I wonder if we could sit together here
why don't
or until you guys get on.
I'll slide over.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, no, we got room here.
Okay.
Yeah. Added another chair.
I already moved you once, Tip.
Paul, just as you're getting started, if I could just introduce this to say that Paul had asked us to put this on the agenda. This is an issue where there is a difference of opinion between the folks who we're going to hear from and City Council on the topic they're going to talk about. And our City Council reps couldn't be here. I have a very brief statement from one of them that I'll read after you've given an introduction to the topic so that we have context for it. And I just want to remind everybody that we want to hear what's going on and that we think the purpose, one of the key purposes of the NPA is to foster communication between the residents of the city and the city government. So I think this is really useful to hear from you. And I know that even though they're not here, our city council reps will hear about what happened at this meeting. Just wanted to let you know that, because that is what this is supposed to be all about. So thank you for being here and recognizing that there may not be total agreement, but we want to hear each other's opinions.
All right, that sounds great. We are glad to be here to talk about this important national and local issue. I'm Paul Fleckenstein from the Apartheid Free Committee here in Burlington. And, introduce Bill.
My name is Duncan Krebs. I live in Ward 2. Yeah, thanks for welcoming us here to chat about this.
Okay, we're both from the Vermont Coalition for Palestinian Liberation, which has launched these campaigns or helped launch these campaigns around the state. The key thing here, the controversy is concerning the open letter that's a demand of the city council to let the voters decide on the apartheid-free community pledge after 2 years of rejection by the city council. So fundamentally, it's an issue of free speech and democracy. But that said, I think to start, I want to introduce by stepping back a little bit for context on what this is about. It's important to begin, I think, by recognizing the incredible contributions of the Palestine movement over the past couple of years. One, in changing the consciousness of people in the United States, recognizing the dignity and the democratic rights of Palestinians, so catching up with the rest of the world, and also offering a vision that's democratic, that addresses social justice, and that is very pragmatic and feasible, although difficult, to reach peace in Palestine and the Middle East. This includes the Apartheid-Free Community Pledge, which addresses core problems in Palestine: settler colonialism, occupation, Israeli apartheid, and now genocide. And I think it's really important to state right at the start that the normalization of genocide that is happening right now, that all the establishment parties promote, is fundamentally unacceptable. It's not something we can accept if we want a world worth living in, let alone for Palestinians. The opponents of apartheid-free community have a variety of pro-Israel talking points, that this issue is divisive, that it's not appropriate, or it's not a local issue, that it's somehow anti-Semitic, etc. These don't hold up, and we can take those on later. But the main point I want to make now is they're also useful to distract from some of the core issues of what we're talking about: settler colonialism, apartheid, and now genocide. So in the short kind of 8 slides that I want to present, I want to talk about those issues. Okay, you can advance that. So our plan is a presentation on what I talked about, the local campaign, some next steps, and then open discussion. Beginning with apartheid, it is an internationally legally recognized crime. So it's the intent and the practice of maintaining domination of one racial group over another. So at the core, it's a racist regime. Next slide. You can just go at all of them. I'll just do them all at once. Thanks. So for Israel, there are 4 areas where this is done: dispossession, and that's moving Palestinians from their land and reserving virtually all the land in Israel for Israeli Jews and excluding Palestinians. Segregation. This is laws and policies that provide movement, political rights, access to institutions, to infrastructure, to education, to healthcare, to one group and not another. Deprivation. So this is the deliberate impoverishment of Palestinians. So under these two sets of laws and policies, there's funding for healthcare, for education, for transportation, for community infrastructure, for a variety of municipal services that we take for granted, vast inequality, as well as differential access to jobs, education, et cetera, and fragmentation. Palestinians, and you'll see a map later, have been fragmented across Palestine, unable to maintain connection with each other across Israel. If you want kind of a US example of this, think of Jim Crow racial segregation, separate and very unequal, plus severe restrictions when there are any on political participation and political expression. So you can advance to the end of this slide. Who has determined that this is apartheid? Well, hundreds and millions of people and organizations, but ones that we all know, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and then Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem have all determined that Israel is an apartheid state. Slide. This is rooted in the institutions of Israel. In fact, it's official policy. The Knesset, the legislature of Israel, in 2018 codified this in the basic law, Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. So the key thing about this is Israel as the historical homeland of the Jewish people. The right of national self-determination in the state of Israel is unique to the Jewish people. Now, there's a bit of ahistoriosity in that, but the key thing is this is based on the Zionist colonization of Palestine. And this actually led, after 2018, to all these human rights groups coming out with documentation and reports about the apartheid nature of Israel. This is a really important and revealing map of the last 75 or 100 years of Zionist colonization of Palestine. The green is Palestinian land from 1947 to 2023. So 1947, you can see the Jewish Zionist settlements, a small part of the total land. When Israel was established in 1948, Israel controlled 80% of Palestine. Palestinians have 20%, despite being the majority of the population. And then from that time until 1967 to 1923, in the era of the so-called two-state solution, you can see that Palestinian land rights have almost evaporated in Palestine. So the so-called two-state solution has actually been a process of justifying legitimation and covering over the continuing ethnic cleansing of Palestine. So you can see that it's ridiculous to say that something started in 2023 with the attacks then in the beginning of the genocide. Nothing started in 2023. It goes way back, and we have to understand this context. As the Israeli historian Ilan Pappé said, the project of Zionism is to control as much as Palestine as possible with as few Palestinians as possible. And you can see graphically how this has been carried out. And now in 2025, the you can take that strip, that's the Gaza Strip on the left in 2023, and you can cut that in half. Palestinians are forbidden from half of that territory, and Israel is opening up the Rafah border crossing one way so Palestinians can leave from the rest of it. So that is what Palestinians and what we've been saying about what's been happening since 2023. And, a couple slides missing there. Is there another? There's a couple of logos missing. Yeah, well, yeah, that's the one.
Excuse me, the last graphic with the four pictures of Israel, is that available publicly online? That's the best presentation I've seen of that transition.
Yeah, it's in this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I guess I should read it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is public. There are various forms of that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So genocide, what we see now is not just settler colonialism and apartheid, but genocide. And that's a deliberate and systematic destruction of a group or people. So Amnesty International, B'Tselem, Human Rights Watch have all reached that conclusion about what's been happening in Gaza since 2023. Also, the International Association of Genocide Scholars has established and called what's happening in Gaza a genocide. And we've seen it. The assassination of hundreds of journalists, the assassination of hundreds of healthcare workers and doctors, the destruction of hospitals, the destruction of every Palestinian university, of infrastructure, of sewage treatment, water treatment. The goal has been to make Gaza unlivable for Palestinians. And then we're seeing that play out now. And I just would like to end by saying we are not saying that this is solely an Israeli problem. This has been supported and funded for decades by the United States, which has its own history of genocide. As you know, if anyone's been watching the new Ken Burns documentary on the Revolutionary War in episode 4, episode 5, George Washington takes his army that's fighting the British and moves it into Indian territory west of the Appalachian Mountains for a campaign of terror and destruction against the native people there, rooting out crops, destroying orchards, destroying food supplies, leveling villages, and saying that this is to teach them a lesson, that no resistance is possible, that this is our land. So the US and Israel, both have their histories of this. And what we want is change in the United States and breaking the ties to supporting that in Palestine.
Thank you, Paul. So kind of with some of that context, want to shift now, talk about the local campaign. So the work being done in Vermont and Burlington specifically. So as Paul introduced, we're here as members of the Vermont Coalition for Palestinian Liberation, which is a collaboration of a number of Vermont organizations and hundreds of residents, all volunteering our time and energy to work for a free Palestine. Kind of something that we hear sometimes is that this issue isn't a local one, and we really believe that it is. In 2024, $27.6 million of Vermont taxpayer money was sent to Israel to carry out these heinous crimes against humanity. In 2023, 3 Palestinian students were shot, showing that violence towards Palestinians is not contained overseas. And again, the boomerang comes back. Apartheid, hate, and violence spread all across the world, and those systems of oppression aren't limited to Gaza. We're also really proud of our state. Vermonters have a long history of acknowledging our interconnectedness and challenging oppression all around the world. The kind of apartheid South Africa movement was successful in ending apartheid South Africa 30 years ago because of the global solidarity of people all across the world, including many Vermonters in our communities. So it's really apartheid. Who's paying for it? As I mentioned, money is funneled out of our communities that could be used in a variety of ways to make ourselves better instead of dispossessing people of their land and their lives. Kind of, you can see a number of stats here. In Burlington, almost $30 million goes to Israel's weapons, and instead could fund over 1,800 households with 1 month's free rent, families with groceries, healthcare, elementary school teacher salaries, households with solar electricity, and students with loan debt canceled. And if you expand out to Vermont, those numbers are increased by many multiples. Yeah.
How do you calculate those numbers?
Yeah, so this source is the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. It's an understanding of how much each of those things cost, and then it's just dividing kind of those numbers. So we can calculate what portion of tax money goes to Israel, and then from there you can divide it out to understand what each of those would equate to.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the Apartheid-Free Community Pledge, which is kind of a large part of the reason we're here today, was initiated by the American Friends Service Committee in 2022. It's based on the global movement to end South African apartheid, and it has over 880 groups endorsed worldwide. The pledge states, "We affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people. We oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression, and we declare ourselves an apartheid-free community. And to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support to Israel's apartheid regime, southern colonialism, and military occupation."
Excuse me just a second. We have a question online. Romeo, you have your hand raised.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, I
I can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I just had two questions, if you don't mind me asking. The stats that you provided, who's the source? I know you mentioned something to the effect of adding numbers here and there. Who's the source specifically to that? And then the second one being is, I know this is a lot focused on Israel, but have you guys had a chance to reach out to Hamas and find out from their perspective how they are responsible, in part of what's happening, basically? Thank you.
As far as the numbers question, I mean, it's public information how much money Vermonters pay in taxes. That's a part of like the national budget. So then the numbers about how much it costs to provide rent for a household is also public information. So this specifically is all just like US government data. I don't know. Do you want to answer the question about it?
Yeah, I think we can get to that in the discussion. We can go through the rest of this, and I think the first part sets up that people who are facing ethnic cleansing, dispossession, loss of their land will resist. And it's like Ukrainians are resisting the occupation and invasion of Russia. There is a principle of a right for self-defense, and I think that's at the core. We want to understand how to address this in a way that upholds justice and democracy. That has to be part of the equation.
So as far as our Vermont context, over 50 Vermont businesses, organizations, and faith groups have endorsed apartheid-free communities. 9 Vermont towns put AFC on the ballot last year, and Winooski, Brattleboro, Newfane, Thetford, and Plainfield all voted to adopt the Apartheid-Free Community Pledge. Right now, there are ballot campaigns happening all across the state to further extend adoption of AFC. A little kind of Burlington, city charter education too. So in the city, if an organization is able to produce a petition containing the signatures of 5% of the registered voters in the city, then the question they're receiving signatures for can go onto the ballot. It's a part of our democratic process. It's local government in action. It's democracy. It's very poor. You are able to show a critical mass of people care about an issue. You can put it on the ballot, let the voters of Burlington decide for themselves. What has happened is 2 years in a row, the VCPL has collected the necessary signatures in Burlington to put AFC on the ballot. And in both those years, the Democrats on the city council impeded the democratic process, killing the resolution in violation of free speech and not allowing voters in Burlington to vote on this issue. Since then, 5 Vermont towns, I mentioned before, have adopted AFC. Also notably, Vermont politicians, including Bernie Sanders, Peter Welch, Becca Balint, have all called Israel's assault what it is, a genocide. Furthermore, the city council this year passed a free speech resolution in the wake of arrests of student leaders speaking in support of Palestine, affirming democratic rights, mentioning Palestine, and speaking about this what we believe to be this very issue. Furthermore, while Burlington City Council Democrats stalled, all across the country, groups, areas, cities, towns have adopted very similar kinds of questions. So in Somerville, Mass, just in November, a ballot question to boycott and divest from business support of Israeli apartheid passed with the majority of voters, with similar resolutions in Burnaby, Canada, Iowa City, Iowa, and St. Louis, Missouri. So our current initiative is collecting signatures for this open letter. The open letter says, "Dear Burlington City Council and Mayor Mulaney Stanek, Democrats in the City Council blocked the AFC pledge advisory question from going to voters 2 years in a row, despite thousands of Burlington residents signing petitions to put the pledge on the ballot. In April 2025, the council unanimously approved a resolution for protecting free speech on Palestine, and it is time to rectify the fact that our free speech rights have been repeatedly denied. There should be a democratic vote on adopting the pledge." So as far as next steps, and again, what we're interested in doing is allowing the people of Burlington to vote on this issue. It's not a matter of our statement, it's a matter of the democratic process and people's right to have their say. What this NPA can do, and what we've begun the process at a number of NPAs throughout Burlington as we give these presentations, is we can vote on a resolution to call on City Council to uphold democratic norms and endorse the open letter to the Burlington City Council. We've distributed language that we've drafted to suggest this. What you can do as an individual is you can sign the open letter at vermontvcpl.org/BTV. You can contact the City Council Democrats to demand the right to vote on AFC. You can inform your community about the pledge and post on Front Porch Forum. And also you can volunteer with us to support the campaign. Feel free to approach me or Paul afterwards. But with that, we're happy to facilitate discussion. We'd love to hear comments, questions. I understand we have city councilors who have a statement as well. But if anyone else has something they'd like to add or ask, we'd be eager to hear it. Thank you.
Last time. Yeah.
So Dale, you're gonna read.
Yeah, I was just looking for that, but I didn't know if there were any questions in the room first while I pull this up.
Romeo has his hand raised again. Let's let Dale read Buddy's comments. City Councilor Buddy.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, our city council representatives weren't able to be here tonight. And we got a message from Buddy Singh, and he asked us to share it with the group here. So it says, "Thanks for inviting Becca and myself to the NPA this evening. Neither of us are able to attend." He noted that this was discussed at the Ward 5 NPA, and if anybody is interested in seeing the discussion there, it's available on YouTube. So at that meeting, both City Council President Ben Traverse, who is the Ward 5 representative, as well as Buddy spoke. Buddy then says to us, "I would like to express I am troubled that this is coming forth again, given the divisiveness this has caused in our community. In particular, that the exact same petition and language is being brought forth for the third time, and not a single person behind this petition has agreed to sit down and have a conversation with others in the community, the City Council included, to amend the language." I'll just add for myself that I have no idea who's asked for a meeting with who else. I'm just reading what Buddy had to say. With challenges the city faces at this moment, the amount of time we on the council have devoted to this could be channeled in a much more productive way for the city's benefit. So that's basically what Buddy had to say. And so if anybody has questions for him, they can direct them to him, or any questions here. Or brief opinions will be welcome.
Okay, we'll go to Romeo, and then we'll go to Hannah online. Romeo?
Thank you, Nancy. Again, for me, it's more of a question and a comment. I'll go with the comment first. I concur with the counselor's statement in part because, of course, I believe in democracy and the right for citizen participation, but at the same time, if the languages that are being presented are, again, as mentioned in prior, is very divisive and one-sided focused kind of language in order to pursue, citizenry here in Burlington to, basically come up with something that is not there for us to even deal with to begin with, then it divides us a lot. The question that I have was, I know I asked this earlier, but the response that was provided was very vague and not a direct answer with respect to looking for the answers online as I'm being told to look for it. So there was no specific answer provided to an earlier question. So I'm going to ask that same question again. What specific information do you guys have that you found with respect to how much is sent to Israel? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Israel rather. That the information that you guys provided us, because based on what I'm seeing on the other side, I'm not seeing the same numbers that you guys are showing. So if you guys can share sources, that would be great, other than, giving us a vague answer. Thank you.
Okay. Hannah?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am very, very new to Burlington, so new that I'm still at my parents' house waiting for my house in Burlington to be painted. And I'm excited to be here and be a part of this conversation. And I just wanted to add a few really quick things. Thank you for this presentation. I just moved here from Atlanta, which is a place where our local police have a very long history of training with the IDF and importing those tactics back into local policing. Atlanta, against quite a bit of community opposition, built a militarized police training center based off of a very similar one in Israel, which they learned about from the IDF. It was called Mini Gaza. It had replicated streets of Gaza for the IDF to train in urban warfare, basically. So I have seen very up close what happens when a community's resources are funneled into policing and other violence that is shaped by the foreign military partnerships we have. And I know that's not here. These are different cities, but I just want to underline that the violence doesn't stay over there, quote unquote. It comes home, and these systems are all connected. The tools, the tactics, the budgets, the political logic circulates. And one of the reasons I was so relieved and excited to move to Vermont was because I see people here fighting for a different version of safety and community care. And for my part, I think that a community that refuses to bankroll apartheid abroad is a community with a chance to build something better, housing people instead of displacing them, just funding life instead of violence. So I think saying yes to this kind of thing isn't just about solidarity with Palestinians, although it's also that. For me, it's about the kind of Vermont, the kind of community we want to live in, and the kind of community we're willing to be. So that's all. Thanks.
And welcome to Burlington.
Thank you.
Yes. And let me just say that we are right on time. So this will be you'll be our last comment on this.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Sounds good. I'm Keely. I live in Ward 6. Happy to be here because this is my first NPA meeting. Excited to come to more. I guess I have a question and a comment. So I'll do my question first. I guess I want to ask y'all, I kind of thought this passed already in Burlington. Is that not right? What ended up happening with the last year's AFC campaign.
It wasn't on the ballot.
It wasn't on the ballot.
Yeah, so for the second time around, the necessary signatures were achieved, and the Democrat City Council stepped in to block it from going onto the ballot. Something we found amongst a lot of people, kind of as we have canvassed to get signatures in this open letter, is people are surprised. They say, I already signed this. I thought this was going to happen.
Right.
And then we say, no, actually, your rights were stifled. This didn't go on the ballot. That is wrong. Please sign this and tell your neighbors about it. So yeah, it's a common point of confusion, and it's a bummer.
That makes sense. Also, Fareed, I see your hand. Did you have an answer to that?
So Burlington City Charter, actually, unlike most other places in Vermont, lets the city council decide whether or not to put an advisory question on the ballot. So they have that power, unlike most other towns in Vermont. So there was, well, this was actually met the amount of signatures. And there was also actually, there was a sit-down meeting between the two sides to come up with some sort of like amendment, but that didn't work out. So it's because of the charter. And also, I would just want to note also, like, when they say like that, there is like some sort of discrimination going on, because when Russia invaded Ukraine, the mayor, this was the last mayor, actually like canceled our sister city relationship with Yaroslavl in Russia without any opposition without any comment like from the city council. But when it comes to we also have a relationship, sister city relationship with Bethlehem, and whose mayor actually had asked for like solidarity from all the sister cities. So it's not true that like we don't actually get involved in this international kind of business, because we did, but when I guess it's easier when it was Russia.
Could I finish my comment?
Okay, your last.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for the information. I really appreciate that. And Fareed, thanks for that comment too. I actually have heard of the sister city involvement with Burlington, because I picked up this picture book from the Fletcher Free Library book sale that like talked about one of the sister cities that Burlington was with. So I think it's super cool that we have the opportunity to pass the AFC resolution and support our international friends. And yeah, I have a bunch of friends in these other cities where it's passed. So whenever we talk about it, and now like hearing that it's not been passed, I feel so embarrassed. So I would really not like to feel embarrassed anymore. And yeah, pass this resolution so we can get it back on the ballot.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So one of the questions, quickly, 60 seconds.
60 seconds. We have our representatives waiting to go on.
Okay, the controversy here is the Democrats refusing to put this on the ballot, right? Winooski City Council put it on the ballot, Montpelier City Council put it on the ballot. So it's an interruption of democracy because they support Israel. This is a Democratic Party that voted against a ceasefire resolution. So it's not about negotiating this and changing the language. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in preventing anything that singles out Israel as the biggest recipient of US aid that's carrying out a genocide. That's what they want to stop. And from our position, we want to be in solidarity with Palestinians, but it is, as Hannah said, as much about, if not more, about our town and our country and our society than it is about Palestinians. The Trump regime has a model of a Christian ethno-national apartheid state. This movement has a lot to teach us about how to resist that, and also redistributing the resources in this society, not going to genocide, occupation, ethnic cleansing in Israel and elsewhere, but going to what we need. So it's as much about us and democracy as it is about solidarity with Palestinians.
Okay.
Did I get it?
Thank
60
you.
seconds?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow.
You're up.
Are we on for the
Yes,
legislative?
Yeah, our legislative priorities.
Well, I think that, Rep. Stone is on line. And I think we'll start with her and then Barbara and Bram, and I'm happy to go last. Because it's about budgets and, you're going to be more interested in what the other three have to say. So at any rate, Mary Catherine.
I'm on. I don't think you can see me, but hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me, Tiff?
We can see a picture of you.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, well, hopefully it's not a bad one. I'm Representative Mary Catherine Stone. I represent Chittenden 14 along with Representative Rachelson, and I'm sorry I can't be there. I have a brand new 6-week-old baby, and this is his bedtime. So his dad's holding down the fort while I'm here with you via Zoom. So I am going to talk to you about some of the major state wins that we had this past session in the area of healthcare. I serve on House Government Operations and Military Affairs, but I know just from knocking doors and talking with a lot of you that healthcare is front of mind for a lot of folks. And I also am an occupational therapist outside of the legislature. So healthcare is front of mind for me a lot of times as well. So this year we passed some of the most significant healthcare reforms that we've passed really in over a decade. So while things are not roses and sunshine in the world of healthcare, we did push some really good legislation through the finish line. And I want to start with talking about those wins. So first was S-126. That's our big healthcare transformation bill, and it's a really big structural step forward. So in that bill, it directs the Green Mountain Care Board to begin shifting our system towards more predictable fixed payments and reference-based pricing. So we can know so we can stabilize our hospital budgets and hopefully finally get a handle on a lot of the runaway cost. And that bill also launches a statewide delivery plan that will strengthen primary care along with long-term care and home-based services. So in a small state like Vermont with older populations and workforce shortages like we have, this bill is foundational, and I was really happy to see that pass. Again, that's S-126. It now has an act number assigned to it, but you can Google that or put it through the legislative website search and it'll pop up. Another bill was H-266. And
Can you explain for 1 second what reference-based pricing is?
Yes, I can. So reference-based pricing is a health insurance cost containment strategy where a set payment amount is used for a healthcare service based on a benchmark like Medicare rates rather than a negotiated network rate. So it's aiming to reduce costs by paying providers a fair markup on the benchmark cost rather than like a higher provider set price, making things more predictable. Okay, I'm going to move on. Another bill we passed was H-266, which is one I was really excited about. It caps hospital markups on infusion drugs at 120% of the Medicare price. So specialty drugs for diagnoses like cancer, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune conditions are some of the biggest cost drivers in our system. And this law directly cuts costs for patients and ensures and protects families from shock charges. We heard some like really compelling testimony. We heard some really compelling stories that were shared by fellow legislators on the floor when this bill was passed about just how expensive those drugs have been, like jaw-dropping. So getting a handle on capping markups on infusion drugs is going to be crucial for these patients who are already going through so much. Okay, the third one I want to talk about is medical debt relief and consumer protections. That's S-27. So we moved to retire millions in old medical debt and ensured that medical debt cannot damage Vermonters' credit scores because we feel that no one should spend years paying for sometimes like the worst day of their life. So the state uses public funding to buy and retire up to $100 million in terminal bad medical credit or medical debt owed by Vermonters and bars credit reporting agencies from counting that debt on people's credit reports. Okay, last bill. Finally, we protected stability in our insurance markets through H35. And that bill is unmerging individual and small group insurance markets by keeping the pools separate. And all that really means is it prevents big unexpected premium spikes for small businesses and working families. So all of those changes together are really aiming to lower out-of-pocket cost, stabilize our hospitals, and strengthen our primary care and long-term systems. But something that I want to talk about, I hate to like leave on a bad note, but that was some like really good stuff. But we know the federal picture, what's coming our way, none of what we're doing exists in a bubble. And what happens in DC has a huge impact in Vermont. And the biggest issue that we're tracking now are the major federal Medicaid changes. So looking at work requirements, higher cost sharing, stricter eligibility checks, and reduced federal support. For a state like ours, where Medicaid touches more than 1 in 3 residents at some point each year, these cuts are huge. So for our small rural hospitals, weakened Medicaid support really is threatening, has threatened, and continues to threaten some core services. So think things like maternity care, mental health, home health. And while Congress did create something called a rural health fund, that will not fully replace the resources that we stand to lose. So we're watching potential changes to that, and then changes to federal subsidies and insurance regulations, which could increase premiums or push low-income Vermonters just straight up off of coverage, which is not great. So what can we do? Good news is that we passed all those bills I talked about, and we planned ahead. So last year we fenced off some significant one-time funding to protect our budget because we knew that federal stuff was coming down the pipeline and there was a lot of uncertainty. But we need to do more. So going forward, this next session, we really need to be thinking about shoring up coverage for our most vulnerable Vermonters. If federal rules tighten or if people just opt off of coverage, like how are we going to address that? We need to continue to support primary care, home health, long-term care providers who are already stretched so thin, and then protect our small hospitals so they can keep offering essential services in every corner of the state. If y'all looked at the news this week, Grace Cottage, Family Health and Hospital, which is in Creamery, Vermont, the state they're trying to, the Green Mountain Care Board this week approved their budget for the coming fiscal year. The Green Mountain Care Board waived the need for a public budget hearing, and gave them a stamp of approval, just signaling that even very small hospitals can remain viable under the new oversight regime, but it's taking a lot of work. So that is the best I can do. Healthcare is a very complicated and complex system, more so than it should be, but tried to do my best to give y'all an overview.
That was great. Thanks.
I tried to.
You always do.
Thanks, Representative Stone.
Should we see the questions? Or should we just wait till?
I think we should wait until,
Right.
just to make sure everybody has time to hear the.
Sure. Makes sense. So I serve on the House Judiciary Committee, Judicial Nominating, and Judicial Rules. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about public safety because I know that's been top of mind for people in Burlington, as well as affordability, healthcare, which is part of affordability.
So just say your.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm Representative Barbara Rachelson. I serve with Representative Stone in Chittenden 14. And a few weeks ago, the Vermont Judiciary held their court day for legislators in Chittenden County, which I went to and spent the day sitting in on a variety of different court proceedings, including the new pilot court, which I know the governor referred to it as the accountability court in Burlington. Judge Zone, who is the chief administrative judge, has shared with legislators that all courts are really accountability courts. And this is really a pilot court to look at cases that have defendants who have very large dockets, many charges. And it was really interesting to sit in on that court. It reminded me a little bit of treatment court, which I also have sat in on. I don't know if anyone saw the story in Vermont Digger this past week. They were there the same day that I sat in. And so one of the cases they were talking about, I got to witness. So I have a little bit of statistics that Judge Zone shared with me earlier this week. And I have not compared them to the Digger article, but there are currently 58 defendants with active pending cases in the pilot. 23 of those persons are being incarcerated. There are 25 eligible defendants on warrant status. And if you're wondering what warrant status is, the judge has issued a court order or a warrant against the defendant due to either a failure to appear in court, a probation violation, or a new charge. And so in those cases, the warrant is there to pick the person up and have them have their day in court. To date, they have had trials, or not trials, court proceedings for 27 defendants. And what's interesting is those 27 defendants represent 238 separate dockets. And again, that's charges. So somebody might have 8 charges against them. In looking at what those charges are, a charge might be a probation violation. It doesn't mean they actually committed armed robbery 8 times. And those 27 defendants with the 238 separate dockets, those cases have been resolved, which is very exciting. There are approximately 24 defendants whose cases are set for pre-trial hearings in December and January. For cases that don't resolve, the trial will be set within the available trial dates that they have cleared the docket to provide. The Department of Corrections has started in Chittenden County a pretrial supervision program, which is great. There was a pilot last year, I think just in the Northeast Kingdom, and it was not well utilized, and we sort of knew it might not be because of where it was. So there's one defendant that is participating in the pretrial supervision program. One is under review to see if they are eligible. 2 were found ineligible due solely to their current incarceration status. But I got to see a little bit of the types of supports that are provided to help that person be able to come to court, to be able to address some of the other big underlying issues. One person, I know the article mentioned this, is unhoused, and there was debate about sending her off to Oregon to be with her family. She would like to go to Oregon, and the thought was, are we dumping cases in other states? Another person, the day that I was there, was in the hospital and not able to, she wasn't considered competent to be in court, but the idea was, and she was very excited about this, she was going to be driven first to her house to get her belongings and then to go to New Hampshire to a treatment program. And I was sort of curious why we were sending her to New Hampshire, but apparently there was not a program available here. And she is excited because she's going to try to relocate in New Hampshire and get out of her environment that doesn't feel like it's helping her to get ahead. Okay, let me pick up speed here so that we're not here all night. So 4 defendants resolved their cases and entered treatment court. Treatment court is terrific in that all the providers are there, and we really need providers to be there. You can order someone to treatment, but if they can't get into treatment or don't have the wherewithal even to continue to call, they're not going to be helped. So the other exciting news is since October 1st, so a 2-month period, October 1st to November 30th, the clearance rate for Chittenden Criminal Division was 131%. Clearance rate is basically it's a performance metric. If it's 100%, the number of cases coming in and the number of cases getting resolved zero out. So we're getting ahead of the curve, not the curb, and chipping away at the backlog. So that also is exciting. So far, the judiciary, the state attorneys and the public defenders are saying that the pilot is successful. It's supposed to go on for a few more months. And the Judicial Nominating Committee has been diligent about setting up hearings to interview judges whenever we get the notice from the governor that there's a vacancy. We know somebody's retiring. We're not allowed to post it until we get the letter from the governor. So we are doing all we can. I'm not going to talk about bills that we passed or that are pending because you two have a lot of really interesting stuff to share too. So I'll leave it there.
On to education. So the legislature, thank you, Charlie. My name is Bram Klepner. I serve in the legislature from this district, Chittenden 13, which is wards 5 and 6, which I share with Tiff, Representative Bloomley, I should say. So this past session, the legislature rolled up its sleeves to deal with the property tax burden that many Vermonters were bending and breaking under, which led to addressing education costs, which drive property taxes, and particularly the fact that Vermont had the highest per pupil education costs in the country, also had the lowest student to teacher ratio in the country, and had increased costs over the last 40 years, even though we have 40,000 fewer students than we did 40 years ago. So a big problem, which after years of trying smaller solutions, seemed to require a big solution. And the governor proposed a big solution, which had a few components aimed at improving educational quality and reducing costs. One of those big components was going from 110 school districts down to 5 school districts. And another one of the components was changing how we fund schools in this state with our impossibly complicated system in which every town in the state, all 200 plus, passes a school budget and then mails it to Montpelier, and whatever they do, we just pay. So replacing that system, so going down to very many fewer school districts and replacing that system with a system in which there is a per pupil allocation from the state to each district so that there isn't wildly different spending levels and wildly different educational opportunities. That transformation to get from here to there is meaningfully complicated. And so the law, Act 73, called for it to be enacted over a number of years. And much of it depends on there being a new map of school districts. Plot twist. The Commission on the Future of Public Education in Vermont, which was charged with producing 3 new school district maps and delivering them to the legislature by around now, said no. They said, we do not find any meaningful evidence that forced consolidation of school districts reduces costs or improves educational quality. So they refused to carry out an order which seemed suboptimal to them. And that leaves us in this strange position because a lot of the next pieces of the reform program are contingent upon the legislature adopting a map. So it is a little bit unclear. I think in the absence, if the legislature accepts the commission's findings that consolidating school districts is not going to help anything and is going to cause lots of harm to a lot of communities, then we either need to amend the law to allow the other parts to go forward absent new maps, or let the thing grind to a halt. I would not dare to venture a prediction as to what the legislature is going, which of those options the legislature is going to take. The end.
All right. So I'm going to talk about the state's fiscal picture in the coming. Oh, I am Tiff Bloomley, and I am Bram's seatmate and live in Ward 5. Yesterday, we had a joint session to hear the state economists talk about the state's fiscal position, how revenues are doing, et cetera, kind of put it in the context of the national picture, and then talk a little bit about the fiscal challenges that were related to education and to healthcare. And I want to first note that a lot of the reports, the federal reports, the data upon which economists base their forecasts are not available because the federal government, well, the White House has canceled them. And there are a significant number of reports that are missing, and the state economists did admit that, he was tearing his hair out a little bit. But so what I'm prefacing this by saying is that the forecasts may change as we learn more. When we get the shutdown, also slowed down some of the reports. So that said, here's what they told us. One, just for background, there are three primary sources of three primary funds into which revenues flow. One is the general fund. The second is the transportation fund, and the other is the education fund. And revenues overall right now are on target in terms of what had been forecast in July, about $8 million above. And an $8 billion budget, or nine, that's not very much money. And it's certainly a lot less surplus than we were looking at last December. The transportation, I just want to highlight that the transportation budget is always a problem for us because fuel efficiency has lowered revenues that flow into that fund, and we have a governor who's been unwilling to raise the gas tax in a way, or on electric vehicles. I mean, we're really wrestling with how we are going to be able to continue to improve our roads given the deficits we always face every year in the transportation fund. State economists blame tariffs for dips in the rooms and meals tax and corporate taxes. Canadian visits are recorded at visitor centers at about 23% below what they were last year. Immigration policies have affected the U.S. labor force. We don't have Vermont data for that, but it is presumed that it has affected things here as well. Unemployment is still low in Vermont. It's at about 2.5%. We're the second lowest rate in the country. South Dakota. And so, and I don't know why, but there is growth in the economy that's largely coming either from investments in AI or from consumer spending of the top 10% in the country who own 85% of all corporate equities and related investments. The bottom 50% of households, though, who own 1% of corporate equities and mutual funds are experiencing lower wages, more layoffs, and the prospect of higher health premiums. So fiscal challenges, that said, that's the big picture. And then the fiscal challenges in the coming session that we will face. Healthcare costs that Mary Catherine already talked about, the subsidies that people receive through the Affordable Care Act, and that were enhanced by federal grants in during the pandemic, are valued at about $65 million. That's a big price tag. It's not a hole that is easy to fill. We have an eroding safety net in several ways. The SNAP program that you've been reading about, there are 1 in 10 Vermonters receive SNAP benefits. And states are automatically, through HR 1, the bill that passed in July, they're automatically forced to pay a larger share of the administrative costs related to SNAP, and that's cost of $8 million. And then the bill also eliminated COLA adjustments, cost of living adjustments for those benefits that were automatic. And fewer people will qualify for utility assistance. Many immigrants no longer qualify, and work requirement exemptions were limited for whole groups of people: homeless, veterans, foster children aging out of the system, and people between 60 and 64. Mary Catherine already mentioned the Medicaid issue, and one of the biggest costs that we automatically will face is that the reduction in provider tax rates that states can charge, which is paid by hospitals and emergencies, I think ambulance services and something else. What? Home health, I think, yeah. What we can charge, which goes right into the general fund and helps support healthcare costs, it will be limited to the degree at a cost of $16 million to us. So we've got to make that up somehow in order to participate in Medicaid. HUD, Section 8 vouchers are at great risk right now. A new rule prioritizes transitional housing over permanent housing. And this threatens to unhouse hundreds of Vermonters who have disabilities, for whom there is no other housing. And federal cuts to the Section 8 program last spring, which happened after we had finalized our budget, have been the cuts have been absorbed by housing authorities throughout the state, but they can't continue to do that, and have asked the legislature to preserve the vouchers they've been subsidizing through savings, basically, that they have for 943 households. And if, in fact, we cannot, through emergency board action, provide funding to fill that gap to keep those families housed, that's another 1,000 households, maybe 1,800 people who would not be housed as of January. So on that really great note, I feel like I have a hard story to tell, but here's what makes me excited about the session. We set aside, as Mary Catherine said, we set aside $110 million to support various services in light of anticipated federal cuts. And we're not clear if the governor has already allocated a lot of that money in the budget adjustment that we'll see in January or through the budget. But that will be one of our big struggles is what to do with that money. We've spent $6 million of it to bridge SNAP in those 2 weeks that were affected by the federal shutdown. We could raise revenues. It's not politically popular and would be used against any Democrat or progressive running for reelection by the governor and the Republican Governors Association. And it doesn't raise a ton of money. If you tax the top 5% of households in the state, you'd raise about $100 million. In the broad scheme of things, it's not very much. It doesn't address the holes that we face. And then, so what we have is one another, and we have a lot of good brains in Ward 6 and Ward 5, well, throughout the state. But you all are incredibly active, and I'm grateful for it because you don't hesitate often to let us know what you need or ideas that you have that we ought to consider. I think what's going to be very important to us as we move forward is that we are transparent. We are transparent about what's going on and try to communicate that consistently throughout the sessions so that you can give us feedback. I think we're all going to have to accept the idea that we are going to lose some things that matter to us because we are in a situation where we don't have unlimited resources. And so the choices we make are going to be really important. And I think it's going to be important for us to find ways to talk about our choices so we can get behind the budget that we're going to have to pass in the coming year. I'll stop there, and I think we're ready to take any questions that you all might have. Yeah.
The money, excuse me, the money that's been set aside to help cover the shortfalls from the federal government, is it intended to cover 100% or half, or don't know at this point?
There weren't, because we didn't know what was going to happen with HR 1. We left it, we weren't prescriptive in a significant way. What we did say is, well, we would, if there were great shortfalls, say, even in the education fund, education was allowable coverage, and anything related to federal shortfalls. And it's really the Joint Fiscal Committee and the Emergency Board, that is all the 4 money chairs and the governor, that decide whether, certain amounts trigger certain actions. So I think it's pretty flexible money.
I would just add, I think we don't know. We don't know how much the federal cuts are going to be, so we don't know what percent that 110 million will cover. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair because it's hard. It's hard to know who isn't going to be eligible for Medicaid. That is really something that the state is trying to work out. It's not because these work requirements, well, what do you count as work requirements? I think that one of the most important things we can do as a legislature is ensure that the system that we have in place within state government is strong enough to and nimble enough to make it simple enough for people to re-enroll in those programs. So not really get rid of the typical barriers that result in people dropping off those programs.
It would be great to figure out how to get revenues up. Like if we could have another eclipse, if anyone, amazing. But like, it's a great idea. And fiction play, like anyway. But seriously, like I always want to go to the place of what kinds of, what can we do to bring money in, right? Because the meals, it's very sad to see how far down.
Mhm.
Maybe, and so also a lot of snow put out this winter, right?
Yeah. So I'll just make a pitch. We were in another meeting this week where Joanna Grossman, who works for Phoenix Books, is really talking about how important it is to support Vermont business and keep dollars in Vermont. And it's easier than you might think it is. It just, be a little creative and don't go to Amazon as your first stop.
I have a bill that is also trying to get state government, like when they're advertising, invest the money in Vermont. Like, let's not send it off to Silicon Valley. Like, let's figure out, right? Because if we all spend more locally, that helps too, right?
Nancy, sorry. Oh, sorry.
No, I am Paul Fleckenstein. I have two questions, one on revenue and taxation, the other one on education. So what's unpopular is broad-based regressive taxes. And that's what hurt the Democrats in the last election. The Affordable Heat Act, it got played. What's popular is progressive taxes on wealthy people, right? The Vermont tax rate on wealthy people has declined precipitously for 40 years because it's tied to the federal rate. There's huge amount of opportunity, not just on the top 5%, capital gains taxes, income taxes, that is popular. It might not be popular with the party. Yeah, you look at the polls, people support that, right? So are you committed to that? Because I think it's not responsible when there's all that revenue out there to be cutting programs.
Well, I mean,
not happy. And then the second one is on education. So Bram, I heard from you last month about the commission and all the reasons that forced consolidation is not a good idea. So it makes sense. Unions are opposed to it, superintendents are opposed to it, it's very unpopular. But I heard Philip Baruth on the radio today is prepared to move ahead with forced consolidation. Is that true? What do we do? Who's the Democratic leader of the? Of this.
Keisha Ram is the.
Senate, so the leadership.
Keisha Ram Hinsdale is the majority leader in the Senate. I did not hear that on the radio, but you heard Phil say that?
It was a report.
Someone reported?
Well, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so.
Keisha Ram, Phil Baruch said that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's a good question. I would say that should the Senate decide to move ahead on their own, I don't know exactly how they do that. I mean, maybe a new piece of legislation. Absent a map from the Commission on the Future of Public Education. But I think, I don't know, my more experienced colleagues, I would say, I think it would run into some headwinds in the House. But because people weren't thrilled. People weren't thrilled about that. I think.
Neither are they about their property taxes. I mean.
Yeah, Daniel Webster once said that a strong conviction that something must be done is the parent of many bad measures. And there was, in fact, a strong conviction that something must be done. And I heard lots of people saying, I'm voting for this with holding my nose and stuff like that.
$2.8 billion to educate 78,000. Like, something is wrong. Again, I know several of you have heard me say for years, we should have one school district. 5 is not going to bring us the efficiencies that we need. And then we'd stop fighting over what the maps look like and put money towards kids and programming and education and not to supervisory districts and overhead. But I have some willing collaborators, but people are scared and they're going to be like, they've got to decide what they're most scared about. Like, not making a change and continuing to have bills sent off to Montpelier to pay. We don't do that with any other service. If we let another system just send the bills to Montpelier, like it doesn't seem responsible to me to have that be the way that we do education financing. I don't know.
Well, on the tax issue, I mean, Bram served on the Blue Ribbon Tax Commission, so he probably has his own thoughts about this. I agree with you, and I have a bill in with two other people to raise taxes, and to create two new tax brackets at 500K and $1 million, and to create a study committee on taxing passive income, and because truly that stat I said earlier about the 85%, of equities, and it was like owned by, the top 10% of Americans is just grotesque. And even doing that, given our population, it does not raise a whole lot of money. I mean, unless you wanted to raise it by 10% or something, but still there are only like 1,000 people that earn over 500 or $1 million. And so it is politically very challenging because we have a governor. We don't have a supermajority. So how do we get the votes from Republicans to overturn a veto? And what I have said to people is the legislature can't be the only ones asking for this. This is where people, Vermonters, need to sound out about it, and people who would stand to pay more taxes, and people who are recognized, and maybe business leaders and folks who might be allies of the governor, but who would say, I'm not paying enough. And there are those people, but this requires a public outcry and assertion that this is fair, this is a value, and I think we would need a lot of help to get that through. So if anybody wants to help on that.
I did suggest to the chair of the Ways and Means Committee that we split the Trump tax cuts with anyone who benefited. That if a high income Vermonter got $100,000 tax cut, that the state get half and the Vermonter keep half. She did not see a path to enactment of doing that.
Okay, we are at time.
Sharon. Are there any?
I didn't see any hands up.
Should I be that kid who asked a question right at the end of the class? Just get out of there.
Were you that kid, Alex?
I could have been, Bram. I could have. My memory is really short sometimes.
Are you the kid that said you forgot to give us homework?
That could have been me too, Nancy.
Friday.
Let's do it, bullshit. Yeah.
All right. I think with that, did you have it? Seriously? No.
Everyone says here.
Thank you very much to all our representatives for being here for an in-depth discussion.
Thank you.
And thanks for all our participants.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks to everyone.
We have to go to dinner. Please bring some food home.